Doctors, distinguished scholars, and ladies and gentlemen. My topic is religion and philosophy at the dawn of Buddhism in India. All of you know that Buddhism arose in India in the 6th century BC. There were several facets of Indian religion and philosophy at the dawn of Buddhism in the 6th century BC in India. You know, my talk runs up to 15 pages. I will summarize the entire speech and ask you to go through the commemorative volume where my article appears. While Vedic authority predominated among the Brahmins, there were also Brahmins who resorted to asceticism as a means of searching truth and the bliss of emancipation. Together with them, people of numerous other social grades and castes formed unorthodox seminal denominations. These denominations held different views on life and ultimate goal of religious life. The common run of these ascetics were popularly known as wandering ascetics or Rectors, who, being motivated by the belief of attaining the goal through asceticism, had already left household life for the practice of self-negating, arduous ascetic practice. At the earlier stage of the movement, they had no permanent abode, but led an itinerant way of life. It is very interesting to know how the Sharan movement had come into existence in Vedic India. Sharan denominations as religious mendicants had abandoned all social commitments and duties, left their ordinary life, and became wanderers in search of truth to attain everlasting happiness. They lived either by gleaning what could be found in the woods and fields, or by begging, depending solely on the goodwill of the laity for their sustenance. They had no concern about secular affairs and existed on the barest necessities of life. Having left behind the traditional way of life and obligations to society, they spent all of their time for a spiritual quest. They studied, analyzed, and experimented different ways of methods for liberation. They also discussed and debated with each other on topics related to philosophy, ethics, and mysticism. Some would also give lectures to a group of followers and disseminate their teaching, emphasizing their own method is the only way for liberation. The Shramana movement is peculiar to India. They might have had some affinity to sophists in ancient Greece. Their exact origin is conjectural. Scholars have expressed different views on the emergence of this movement. Some of the early Indologists believe that it was inspired by the Vedic tradition. Jacobi, for example, concluded from the similarities that existed between the main vows and obligations of Jaina and Buddhist monks on the one hand, and certain rules for ascetics in the law books of Gautama and Bodgaya on the other, that neither the Buddhists No, the Jainas have in this regard and claim to originality. But that both have only adopted the 5 vows of the Brahmanic ascetics. Similar remarks have been made by Kern afterwards. So many views have been put forward by different authors according to their conception, and also they have given different interpretations in regard to the appearance of Sharan movement. According to these statements, the growth of Parivarika was the result of an intellectual movement before the rise of Buddhism. He remarked further that the movement that appeared before the rise of Buddhism was in large measure a lay movement, not a priestly one. So, several scholars have given their own interpretation with regard to their emergence, and there is also some kind of impact of inner civilization that we find in Indian history. Because of the close contact and impact on one another's religious conviction, numerous trains of thoughts and practices related to their beliefs and philosophies had intermingled together in the study of their religion and philosophy. At the time of the Buddha is rather complex, if not confusing. For our understanding of the religious conditions at the time, the Jain and Buddhist canons have supplied us with some valuable data in their canonical and commentative works. The basis of the multiplication of the religious and philosophical concepts goes back to the Vedic period. Practice of asceticism and self-tormenting, austerity in the forest, and pursuing meditation as a means of realization also go back to Vedic period, or with all probability to Indo-Aryan civilization. With the excavation of the Mohenjo-daro which belong to Indus civilization, a figure has been discovered by the archaeologist N.K.P.G. In his list, it is numbered as 46. The figure is supposed to be that of a goat and has been described minutely by both Mackay and Sir John Marshall. Description of the figure given by Sir John Marshall is given below to judge how the practice of self-mortification goes back to pre-Aryan civilization in India. So I have given here the description given by archaeologist Sir John Marshall, and you can see it from the comparative volume. So he says that figure is that of Shiva. Shiva is preeminently the prince of yogis, the typical ascetic and self-mortifier. Whence his name Mahatapa, Mahayogi are formed. Primarily, the purpose of yoga is the attainment of union with the God by mental discipline and concentration. But it was also the means of acquiring miraculous powers, and in course of time, the yogi came to be regarded as a magician, miracle monger, and chanter. Like Saivism itself, yoga had its origin among the pre-Aryan population. So he gives a long description with regard to this figure. And later on, this figure is identified as having itinerary for Buddhist characters, Urda Medu. Goyal has shown that in Pauranika Hinduism, Shiva was worshipped both in human and carried forth. This may point to the fact of Shiva worship found in modern Hinduism as well. So, non-Vedic Harappan ascetic tradition was indeed the forerunner of the Sramana movement. It was in time relegated to the background as a result of the dominance of the more mundane Aryan tradition. However, the practice could not be completely wiped out, and after remaining at the sideline for a period of time, it gained momentum and re-emerged with a force that stirred up the traditional system existing there. So all these things were there. All of you know that there were 6 ascetics, including Mahavira, who are termed as heretical teachers, and they were considered as Sravanars. And so many descriptions have been given by later texts, such as Upanishads, with regard to the appearance of Sravanas and the various kinds of Paripajaks who lived in India at the time of the Buddha. Over the years, the tendency of infiltrating adventitious thoughts into main thought current was continued, and the process resulted in the growth of numerous philosophical speculations and religious practices among the seekers of truth. During the time of the Buddha, sorry. Okay, now I would like to summarize and what the Buddha has said about these the 4 ways of negating holy life. So, taken from the sutras and also different views given by the Buddha as well as Professor Jayatilathar and Professor Ramakrishnan and Professor Dasgupta. And I would like to wind up that as the time is over, and you may read the article afterwards and see how numerous Sramanas and traditions spread during the time of the Buddha together with the Brahmanism in India. Thank you very much.
Yeah, switch off that one, please. Switch off the mic over there. Then it will work. Yes. No, it will work. It will work.
Okay. Oh, have to be only one at a time. Thank you so much, most venerable Dr. Nyanarama, for your presentation. It's quite long, so if you want to know more of his presentation, you can read on the book on page from 373 to page 388. It's quite a long paper. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Sushma Trivedi, Associate Professor, Department of History, N.K.P.G College, University of Lucknow, UP, India. She's going to speak on self, no self, and the other in politics of identity, an axiomatic position from Buddhist viewpoint. So, Professor, please, your floor.
Thank you, and very warm namaskar to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for having me here for this conference, and my personal thanks to Professor Sovarnarattana. Today my presentation is about the identity politics and the positioning of self and the other. It is rather a comparative study between the modern concepts, the Western concepts and the Buddhist concepts. And since we are running short of time and we have not having enough time, so first of all I'll introduce you with the main components of my paper. So first there would be premise of my paper. Then I will talk about the identity construction. After that we'll see that what is the concept of self. Is there self in Buddhism or there is no self in Buddhism? After this discussion, then I'll compare the individual or the self of the Western concepts and the Buddhist concepts. Then what is the relationship as perceived by the Westerners about the relationship, identity relationship between self and the other. And the conclusive remarks will come from my model of Vishuddhi Magga model about the relationship between self and the other, which is naturally a kind of remedy for the modern predicaments of the identity politics. So modern societies and political systems lay great emphasis on liberty, civil rights, and social justice. In present society, there are large-scale migrations, displacements of population, combined with civil rights, and all these things have given rise to identity politics. And the issue of identity has been propelled into the center stage of political discourses and intellectual discourses. So earlier it was thought that this is mainly a problem of the West because they are having multicultural societies, and this does not affect the Eastern, Southeast Asian nations largely due to their racial homogeneity. But recent events in Myanmar and some other countries in Southeast Asia, it is better that we become alarmed and we become equipped to counter these issues which are erupting in Southeast Asian societies as well. We can see this problem in Philippines, in Bangsamoro problem in Philippines, and the problem of Gaptar community in Indonesia, Kek problem in Thailand, and of course the Rohingya problem in Myanmar. So the Rohingya issue has internationalized this problem of this kind of problem. Unfortunately, all these problems emerging in Southeast Asia somehow, in some way or the other, they relate to religion. And while they relate to religion, Buddhism comes in picture because most of the Southeast Asian countries are predominantly Buddhist. There are 97% of Buddhist population. So nowadays, Buddhism faces a threat of being labeled as or projected as aggressive religion, and the Myanmar problem is arguably seen as Buddhist aggression or religious otherness. But the problem is that this problem is not properly located in a proper perspective, because basically this is not a religious problem. This does not have a purely religious origin. Religion is of course there in the picture, but basically this is a problem of identity crisis, or identity or some national issues are related to this problem. So identity politics has naturally, with all these emergencies and all these issues and trends, identity problem has become a major issue. So in 19th century, this was worked upon identity issues, and interestingly, the social or political thinkers did not work much on identity issues as much as the modern psychotherapists, neuroscientists, and psychologists have worked on the issue of identity. And the foremost is psychologist Eric Erikson, which is saying that identity crisis is the signature of epoch of the modern era. And he deals with identity in terms of identity crisis, and he has worked a lot. He has given several examples and several ways how to tackle the identity issue and how these issues erupt. So initially when this notion of identity came to the prominence, German psychologist, German philosopher Wittgenstein, he said there can be no finer example of a useless proposition. Even then, identity is important to the political thinkers and modern sociologists, psychologists, and it is being worked upon in a great way because it holds the resolve to many of the new problems erupting with the newer development of the society. So, like identity is constructed of two components, and the two are the self and the other. Western concepts place these two components, like the self and the other, as binary opposite on the fulcrum of identity. So the idea inherent their identity concept is that there is antagonism between the self and the other. Their interests are contradictory, and they can they do not have a permanence and they cannot claim an eternity. Even then Buddha did. So I would conclude, and you can go through my paper about the discussion, that what Buddha meant with, because in Buddhist literature we come across the words like Purush, Jeev, Atman. So what we conclude is that Buddha did mean individual with this when he uses his words like Purush Atma or Purush Atman or this thing Jiva. So this self this Buddhist self is basically very socially oriented self, socially embedded self, and it has a very close relationship with the other. Whereas the individual, that is self of the Western societies, it was worked upon much in 16th century, from 16th century onwards, in John Locke, Immanuel Kant, René Descartes. They gave their opinions about what is self or what is individuals. So, to conclude from their opinion, it may be said that Western individual is an atomic individual, and they pursue their individuality very fiercely, and that individual is considered as a cognitive whole. So that individual of the West is quite different from the individual or self of the Buddhism, because both of the one is asocial type and the other is socially embedded individual. Then after this discussion we come to the discussion about how the self and the other relate. As I've already said, the self and the other in Western concept, they have antagonistic relationship. One is weakened to strengthen the other. So when this kind of equation is held there is a conflict, and this conflict gives rise to the social disharmony and all sorts of uprisings, all sorts of separatism and all. When we see this relationship in Buddhist concept, Vishuddhimagga is a very good model of how this relationship between self and the other should be established. Vishuddhimagga, I'm not elaborating upon all these because I have very little time. So I'm just saying that Buddhism has three basic principles which actually define the relationship between self and the other. The first is the karmic principle. In karmic principle, self and the other are bound together in a cyclic sense. Like what one does to other is rebounded to one in terms of fruit of his karmas. So one does bad to the other, one receives bad results. One does good to the other, one receives good results. So this relationship between one and the other is defined in a very different sense than the Western societies. The second thing is empathy. Buddhism emphasizes upon empathy. One should love oneself. One should love other as one loves oneself. So empathy, like Barack Obama said, is the heart of our moral values. So empathy is also important. And the third, the most important part is the practice of 4 Brahma Viharas, or the sublime attitude, that is Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha and Maitri. There's a beautiful example in Vishuddhimagga where it is said how these 4 Brahma Viharas are to be practiced. They are practiced upon the other persons. So there's an object-subject relationship between the other and the self as prescribed in Vishuddhimagga. Like one practices Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha and Maitri in reference to the other. One has to be compassionate to the other to be to generate that value within oneself. So these when these practices are perfected, then other doesn't remain other. It becomes part of oneself, and oneself becomes unbounded and peripherally self, which includes all the others. Which there are 4 categories of people, like dear ones, wretched ones, hostiles, neutrals. So all these people, when you practice these 4 Brahma Viharas, gradually you progress to the most hostile one. When all the categories of people are incorporated within the realm of your compassion, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita and Upeksha, then no other remains there. So this is the kind of relationship that one should establish with other, that will make a cordial, harmonious society, and will be a very fruitful example to be followed by the West as well as the Eastern societies. Thank you very much, and very sorry for exceeding my time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sushma Trivedi, for your very fundamental presentation on the very fundamental topics. Is dig out what has been in the Buddha's time called self, no self, Atman, Anatman. So it's very interesting. We can have more debates or kind of Q&A after all the presentations have been delivered. Now, next, we'd like to invite Professor Roshan. He's going to speak on what ails in Buddhist education of Southeast Asia. So, Professor Roshan, go.
With great regards for this conference organizer, most venerable Sovarnarattana has done a miraculous job for combining various minds on different subjects. And it is a great honor to present the paper under his able guidance and leadership. And at the same time, I'm very thankful to the entire organization who gave me an opportunity to come and speak. As you see that when we discuss about certain terms and terminology related to what we have in the modern understanding of civilization, we always have to remember our handicaps. In the same way, when you study about religion and then you talk about dharma or dhamma, which is very difficult to translate when we see the modern concept of the English terms and terminology. Similarly, education also becomes the same issue. In education as a word, when we see the dictionary and definition in Cambridge, you will find that the word education means for processing or teaching or learning in a school, or the knowledge that you get from this. Also, when you go much more deeper in Webster and other dictionary, you find study of methods and theory of teaching. We have to remember that this word has a great limitation to understand the concept of education in our Asian context, especially in South Asia and South Asia. So I say that when we use the term vidya and siksha, we always remember that it is a much more larger, and we must realize the limitation of the word in an inability to express all what the related Indic terms stand for. This is my humble suggestion that education should not be translated exactly to the meaning what we use in our Buddhist way of life and daily life. And second point which I would like to say, that in this cutthroat competition of survival, so education becomes some sort of a tool, and advancement and development comes together. So when you are a teacher or when you are offering education, quote unquote, the cutthroat competition is very reduced. In that situation, you will find that teachers are also themselves in a great suit because they are required to produce quote unquote results. So in the name of education, the students are required to undergo standardized instruction intended to make them efficient servant of a demeaning society social system. While such education may be necessary to guarantee social stability, it does little to fulfill the higher end of learning, the illumination of the mind with the light of truth and goodness. So a major cause of our educational problem, wherever you see, especially in the Asiatic mode of life, that commercialization of education has played a great havoc on our understanding, including Buddhist education. As we see that we have cutting off the time because we have extra speaker and very important speakers. So I will not be speaking paper line by line. Just I want to tell that first of all, education is being explained in this manner and our limitation. Secondly, I have tried to say that secondly, yeah, it is already moved to the next page. Secondly, I want to say that South Asian culture has very unique civilizational quality. And remember that the Buddhist-oriented agrarian-based population has. Can you go to the first page, please? You know that the awareness of Southeast Asian system of understanding Buddhism and education is totally different what we have in pre-Vietnam War days. It was only post-Vietnam War when, or during Vietnam War rather, you saw that the televisions in the US and other European countries were highlighting live telecasts of the destroyal of the Buddhist system of life in the area. Similarly, we saw something happening in Cambodia later on. Earlier, Buddhist temple campuses, what has been famous for providing knowledge, education, and it was evening full of respectful socio-religious lacon, and it has no space like what we have today, soap opera, if we want today. Though you know these are the modern concepts which is affecting the minds in the entire world, not only Southeast Asia, and sometimes it really helps you because when you are experiencing, there is a huge demand of soap opera around when you study or learn about any culture. I had also wonderful benefit last month when I was coming to Cambodia. At the immigration and customs time, they were watching one Naki serial on the mobile phone, and I could smuggle out my product into Cambodia without paying tax. Of course, the product was 2 bottles of water, so not very expensive. But you know, the people's devotion, you know, it shapes minds. So this is the smaller background with which I am talking about. Can you move to second page, please? And here in the second page,
There's a controller. You can.
I can use this?
Press the right.
Okay.
Right side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it just reacts after the Nagi series is over. That's why you say it.
It's not slide, so it doesn't jump.
Okay.
Yes, to go this process.
I know this costs my time, but anyhow.
It's okay. You ask something?
Yeah.
Do it.
Could you come back to page 2, because I just want to speak only 1 or 2 lines on each page unless I come to the main crisis. Okay. Is that the last?
Already there.
This is the last?
Go back. Right on the left.
Okay. Okay, now I got the point. Yes. Thank you so much. And I promise I will make up the loss by not going longer. So here I was talking about the doctrinal focused education in the oh my god, 3 months. So what I am jumping then to my issues and like that. So I just came to tell you that in Buddhist education
One more very extra because of the loss of time in the
you are full of karuna metta. Thank you so much for that. I am mudita in situation by you. So I want to tell you 2 more things. When we study about Buddhist education system in Southeast Asia, we have to remember there are 2 different variants which we learn. One variant is that colonial Southeast Asia, one is non-colonial Southeast Asia. So what you see in Malaysia and Singapore has been a colony, and also Myanmar, you will find that they came to have this challenge of Christianity being a big challenge to see modern education system, because what a temple complex of Buddhist meanings had an offering for learning in the campus, in the primary education level, and from there they could jump into that one. But since 19th century, when the concept of matriculation, colleges and degrees came up, because without BA, Buddha was so Buddha. He didn't require any graduation degree. So this concept of the degree and knowledge and education affected Buddhist education very badly in Southeast Asia, especially in the colonial area. They took the challenge in many ways. In between Thailand type of country where they have no colonial control, they did have certain influence from those Latin teaching missionaries who were given place to live in the main temple of Buddhist capital city in Thonburi and also in Wat Pawon, where from Ajahn Sarsan Anil comes from. These are the places where they learned to establish. At the same time, they got certain ideas on how to run the Buddhist education system. So what happened in 1890s and 1910-11, when Rama V is the king, the education of Buddhist monastic education had mix up of modern knowledge, modern subjects, so that they could compete with the education being provided by Western style of education. But that was not enough. Now what is happening in earlier 20th century, when we see in the situation of Myanmar, the Sangha Mahanayaka and Mahathera Samakom of Thailand, they did talk about how to change the old system of education. And remember that the Nak-Tham examination, which was going to be there for 200 years, have been changed to have curriculum based with textbook materials which have been adopted by including certain other texts of history, logic and other papers on grammar. So this also gives a good boost to the study and the problem of Buddhist education. Finally, I would like to say that there was a challenge happening around in these countries. Why should we follow the Western mode of learning when we are teaching morality of Buddhism? This crisis has been a big topic among Thai Sangha system especially and Myanmar system also. And in that, Mahachula Lamkon has taken a lead in recent 20 and 30 years especially, when they started School of Buddhist Way. This is a new concept which came in last 30 years only. And with this, now 12,000 schools of Buddhist Way have come up, just to take up the challenge of the modern educational crisis. And similarly, I have talked at the last how the Buddhist Sunday schools have been brought in. Started in Sri Lanka in 1886, and afterwards in 1940s and 1950s it crept into Thailand, because the king's visit and the Supreme Patriarch's visit found that this will be a great way to have, because Sunday school for Christianity was well known in the colonial India, colonial areas of Asia. So this was taken as a challenge, and Dhamma discourse have been given since then, since 1958. At the end of that, I would like to tell you, the challenges have been very difficult. And still, because of the dominance of certain group of elderly monks and not akin to the ideas of changes in modern educational system, we need to have great thinking on the subject of how to survive in front of the modern onslaught of the education. And I think I will request most venerable next time, we should have a complete conference on Buddhist educational systems, how to survive and flourish. With these words, I just wind up myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Roshan, for your thought-provoking presentation. And as I'm also in the field of education, in fact, my teachers, pedagogy, were trained. My specialized area was education and English. So very much that, and my PhD thesis also dealt extensively with education. So you have brought up very important issues here. That Buddhist education has been westernized, and to the extent that it has lost its historical place. And that's what the case in Cambodia, and my university is a case in point. We have lost the thorough studies of Pali, Sanskrit, and Buddhist studies or Buddhism itself, because they're going on 4 degree only, so they don't pay much attention on the proper knowledge. So, but very similar line in Thailand. Myanmar has a little bit different education. So we will hear, I apologize to Dr. Bandabil, hear more education from Myanmar before we go to health. Health is good for education as well. So, but somehow go to education because it's connected. I would like to invite Professor Dr. Ashin Ketu, Head and Department of Pitaka related Pali, State Pariyatti Sasana University, Yangon, Myanmar. And he's going to speak on Pariyatti education in Myanmar. So let's see and listen to him, what he has offered. Please, Venerable.
Honorable Bhikkhu Sangha, many scholars, friends and Dhamma, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, all of you. My topic is Pariyatti education in Myanmar. It is not a research topic, just information about our Pariyatti education system. Among the Asian countries, Myanmar is known as a Buddhist country for its Theravada Buddhism. Majority of people are Buddhist. Many Buddhas, monasteries can easily be seen everywhere in Myanmar. Buddhist people in Myanmar are generous to establish Buddhist monasteries, nunneries, and religious monuments and offer them to the Buddhist community of monks and nuns. These monasteries and nunneries are used not only for the religious purpose, but also for the educational institutions as well. In early days, exactly speaking, before the British occupation, the education for the entire nation was in the hand of Buddhist monks. The whole education system was based on the Gurukula tradition. The tradition can also be seen in the Jataka stories as Patriarch. According to this tradition, students have to live in the teacher's house or in the monastery while they are studying. And it was led by the monks. In those days, all monks were teachers. They taught nearby students, villagers, and gave them literary arts, and spiritual guidelines as well. That is why Buddhist monks are called Sihanoukraja in Burmese language. Sia means teacher, Do means noble, Sihanoukraja means noble teacher. So, whenever you meet Myanmar monks, you can greet them Sihanoukraja in Myanmar language. At the present, the education system in Myanmar can be divided into two: the education for the monks and nuns, and the education for the lay persons. The lay persons study various subjects as their need or desire, but monks and nuns study Myanmar language and literature as well as Pali. Now, as the world is global village, they are studying English language and other subjects, but they still tend to go to the government schools and universities. Generally, monks and nuns started their education at the local monasteries and nunneries. Their education is Buddhist education. Since the beginning, they had to learn Buddhist scriptures step by step as prescribed by the different institutions. But the course for the beginners is not much different from one institution to the other. All institutions prescribe the textbook, the 10 collections known as Sihanoukraja in Myanmar language. Among the 10 collections, the important suttas for the Buddhist people like Magadh Sutta, etc. are included. The Myanmar Buddhist education system for the beginners can be traced in the Nikaya of Theravada. No examination is set up for the beginners except in the two institutions. After the beginner's course, all students have to study the text Abhidhamma Sangha and Patriarch. These two texts are very important for the Preah education. It is also essential to pass all Buddhist examinations. Without proper understanding the two texts, Preah education cannot be continued. For the proper understanding the two texts, the other two texts, Abhidhamma Vibhavini and Adapasati, are also to be studied under the guidance of a good teacher. For the Preah education, no tuition fee is to be paid. All are provided for the free of charge. In Myanmar, there are various levels of Preah education, Preah examinations. They are schedule Mula examinations, Patamagaya examination, Patamala examination, Patamati examination, Nikaya examination, Dhammatriya examination, and Chipitpatra examination. Of these examinations, Patamagaya examination, Patamala examination, Patamati examinations are called Patamadian examinations. These Patamadian examinations came to appear at the time of King Salon in Myanmar era 1000, 1638. The examinations were held under the right patronage. The purpose is to promote Preah education and to award the outstanding candidates. The texts prescribed for the Patamadian examinations are Vimatika, Kotagasika, Mulasika, Kankau Darini Akakata, Abhidhamma Sangha, Abhidhamma Vibhavini, Abhidhamma Vibhavini, Pajana Vyakrana, Pajana Sara, Satana Vidachinda, Patarupasedi, Otoria, Subodha Lengara, Abhidhanat Pativika, Madhika Katukta Ayakao, Chemaka Ayakao, Katana Ayakao. These three Ayakaos are Abhidhamma subjects and some extracts from various suttas. The candidates have to make their study their texts by heart and study them properly. Those who pass the Pathamaja examination got the chance to enter to the Buddhist order as a novice or as a monk, receiving hints of the support. They were honored by the king with the whole requisites and other things. That tradition ended at the time of British. The material examination was held before the independence. The method was taken from the traditional teaching style and the model of Priyati Sasanahita examination held by the association named Priyati Sasanahita of Mandali. Those who passed the Priyati Sasanahita examination, which was held at Mandali, are recognized as the most outstanding winners among the Samadriya degree holders. The association supports the degree holders so that they can conduct daily activities easily and smartly. After gaining the independence, the government officers of those days tried to set up the association to hold Tipitaka examination. This examination is the most difficult exam to pass. Candidates make the Tipitaka by heart. The exam includes oral and written text. The oral is to maintain the Buddhist tradition. The result of this examination is appearing Tipitaka class. Yama monks showed the ability by holding Chakra Sangana, the sixth Buddhist council. To that council, the Cambodian monks were also attended. After Buddha's pre-Nirvana, leaders of Magadh maintained Tipitaka orally and handed down generation to generation. Nowadays, over 500,000 monks, Yama monks are trying that Priyati education to maintain Buddha's teaching for the welfare and benefit of mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, most honorable Professor Ketu, for your presentation illustrating the education in Buddhist education in Myanmar. So Myanmar also have adopted this kind of degree system for Buddhist education, but they still retain the core studies of Buddhism. And only when you see the name of the university as well as the Pariyatti Sasana, State Pariyatti Sasana University. So they have the department of Pariyatti, the faculty of Pariyatti, faculty of Patipatti, faculty of Abhidhamma. So before that, the students have to pass. Because I have done some research and I have written some also on the education, Buddhist education in Myanmar. So they have to pass 3 grades. What Professor Ketu mentioned, Pathamat Nge, Pathamalat, Pathamji. This the prerequisite to before entering university. Yeah. And all they have the other Sasanahita or this organization, national organization, to conduct examination. And then students can see the examination. So they go up to Dhammacharya and Mahadhammacharya now. Dhammacharya is considered equivalent to BA degree, and then Mahadhammacharya is equivalent to MA. So Sri Lankan universities have also recognized this, and once Myanmar monks got the Dhammacharya, they are admitted to master degree program. And also Mahadhammacharya, but they still need to fulfill the requirements, the English proficiency, before entering the degree. So that's very interesting. Now we have heard quite about education. Now we go to health. So we'd like to invite Dr. M.H. Tilkaratna, Professor in Mass Communication, Department of Mass Communication, University of Cambodia, Sri Lanka. So I have the professor from university where I was doing my studies for about 7 years, the University of Cambodia. He's going to speak on Buddhism and health communication, the study on references in Buddhist scriptures on physical and mental health. Please, Professor.
Hi everyone, Namaste. Good afternoon everybody. First of all, I like to thank to the organizing team. My topic is Buddhism and health communication, a study on references in the Buddhist scriptures on physical and mental health. Actually, my subject is mass communication, and in our university 3 years ago we had new subject stream health communication to our syllabus. After that, it was very interesting and I did several researches regarding relevant that subject, health communication. Last year in Sydney and Bali, Indonesia, I presented 2 papers according to this health communication. And also in European countries, according to my experiences in European countries, most of people are used to meditate in temples in Europe countries. As example, in Vienna, more than 5,000 Austrians are participating to meditation program. So I selected this topic, what can be used from Buddhism to relax human mind and to cure human mind. My content: introduction, significance of research, research problem, research objective, hypothesis, literature review, research methodology, limitations of research, conclusion. Introduction. What is health? Prevention is better than cure signifies the importance of the existence of non-disease human well-being and disease by many chronic and non-communicative as well as the current widely spreading illnesses among world. According to Buddhism, Arogya Paramalabha. What is personal health? Personal health is greatest health condition for all of us. What is communication? Communication is a mutual understanding and information between two persons or two groups. What is health communication? Health communication is a scientific strategy to develop good health among the people. Significance of health communication to improve the human mind and human behavior physically and mentally. Significance of the research. The people who are living in whole world are suffering from various physical and mental problems, as well as they are living with intolerance, antipathy, hatred, unhappiness, depression, stress, and so on. This will be a very big issue in modern world. Actually, in present situation, we have to think about the limit of our work. Most of people are doing unlimited. Most of people are thinking. Most of people are earning money. Most of people are relaxing more than the limit. And also, we have to think about the limit of physical pleasure. and also mental pleasure. So, therefore, we need a strong, realistic and scientific solution to manage this situation in the world. There are many advices and instructions from various institutions and high opinion makers with regard to this. However, these all solutions have been failed to address this serious issue. So we have to find a scientific solution for this matter. For solving this matter, the world has discovered the eternal solution is from the depth of Buddhist philosophy. This is most significant element of this study. Hypothesis. It is crystal clear that we can solve all the physical and mental health problems of the human by using Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy. Research problem. How can we use and practice self-communication strategies of Buddhism to control and to cure the present critical problematic situation of the human society? Objective. Introducing the scientific-based and practical self-communication method of the Buddhism. Analyzing the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra and selecting the very important factors which we can apply to the present human society. Chaturarya Satya, Aryasthanga Magga, Atthakilamatthana Yoga, Madhyama Pratipada. Research methodology. Method of research. Research method is the content analysis. Selected some sutras and some very important factors relevant to the human behavior and physical factors of human mind. Review of literature. Actually, I have mentioned definitions of health communication, and I don't go to explain those. Lord Buddha's first Dhamma Desana Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta is the scientific analysis and discourse of health communication. Two theories and two behavioral patterns used in that period have been fully rejected in this sutta. The two theories, Sastvatavadaya, which believes the world is eternal, and Uchedavadaya, which rejects the concept of rebirth, have been modified. The behavioral system of Sastvatavada is Kama Sukhalikana Yoga, and behavioral system of Uchedavada is Atthakilamatthana Yoga. The Lord Buddha preached Kama Sukhalikana Yoga is the composition of being Hina, Gramya, Pratabjana, Anarya, and Arthasunya. And Atthakilamatthana Yoga is a composition of Dukkha, Anarya, Atma, Arthasunya, and likewise. Limitation of the research. The limitation of the research is found in only health communication factors in Buddhism. Data analysis, Madhyama Pratipada. Madhyama Pratipada is, we have to understand Atthakilamatthana Yoga, Kama Yoga, and in Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, Chaturarya Satya, Aryasthanga Magga. In Chaturarya Satya, Dukkha, Samudaya, Nirodha Magga. Dukkha, sorrow, sad. Samudaya, birth of the sorrow. Nirodha, removing Dukkha. And also Magga, the way to remove Dukkha. Actually, to control our mental and physical health problems and personal problems, it is very important to study Chaturarya Satya, also Aryasthanga Marga, because it says the very good lesson for a successful life. Samma Dept, good vision. Samma Sankappa, good thinking. Samma Vacha, good word, spoken pattern. Samma Kammanta, good word. Samma Ajiva, good living pattern. Samma Vayama, good vision. Samma Sati, good memory. Samma Samadhi, good spirit. So, if we are analyzing Dukkha, Jati Dukkha, Jara Dukkha, Marana Dukkha, And Piyehi Vipayogo Dukko, Apiyehi Sampayogo Dukko. Everything is there in Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. It is a very important lesson to the successful life. And also, excessive sleep is a major reason for the bad health. There are 5 bad results under the excessive sleep. Dukkham Sukati, painful sleep. Dukkham Patipujyati, painful awake. Papakam Supinam Pasati, nightmare. Devata no na Rakhanti, no blessed by God. Asuchi Muchanti, bowels open unconsciously. And also, according to Lord Buddha's scriptures, a person who has a clear mind collects 5 good results. Sukham Supati, good night sleep. Sukham Patipujyati, pleasant awake. No Papakam Supinam Pasati, no nightmare. Devata Raksanti, blessed by God. Asuchina Muchanti, no problem with bowel movement. And oral hygiene is a very essential factor for the healthy life. There are 5 results in Buddhism which can be seen regarding. I don't go explain this, you can read. And conclusion, finally, we can conclude Buddhism is the foundation of good health. Considering these factors, actions have to be taken to develop connectivity between the Buddhism and health communication all over the world. Sukhi Digha Yuko Bhav.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Panda. Dilgarna Panda. Yeah, it's Dilgarna Panda. Sorry. For your excellent presentation on how communication affects health and bad health of a person. And what is remarkable is that you have said that excessive sleep is a cause of bad health. So some people are fond of sleeping. I find at the Abbot temple, some young monks, they want to sleep longer. At the time they don't want to get up, so we have to sometimes, use some sticks. So yes, a very good lesson, and this still we can inquire more from the presenter. Last but not the least, now we still have one more vulnerable to make some speech here. So I don't know what he's going to speak, but perhaps he's going to speak spiritual health. It's a compliment to your presentation. So Venerable Sohira from Magadh Buddhist University, Isan campus in Konkan province, northern Thailand, northeastern Thailand. So please, Venerable.
Buddha, the Son, my respect to most venerables, professors, and all relatives in number. Let me share this time with all of you in a good health way. As I was suffered with the serious dangerous disease 14 years ago, and now I have been living with liver cancer for 14 years already. Even though at that time all the doctors diagnosed that I could live 42 years, but now already 14 years. So for my own direct experience, may I continue from professors who just give the talk before me. So please may I invite everyone here to just sit comfortably and take long breath. So if possible, if you can sit upright, take longest breath in and longest breath out. And close your eyes a bit. We take about just one. Breathe in, breathe out. So let's go back to when the Buddha was alive. Before any theory, before any tradition, and before any scripture, any text, the Buddha also point to reality to encourage all those monks and people and Buddhists, not only Buddhists, all the people to live their life mindfully, to live their life carefully, to live their life peacefully, and then they will be able to live happily and freely at the end. So let's go back to that time. Live our life carefully, which I guess everyone understands that. That is Sila. Live our life mindfully, that is Samadhi. And live our life wisely, which can be peacefully and wisely, which can be Panya. So the Sila, Samadhi and Panya, the Buddhist education system, since then until now, we still use the same system of education, Buddhist education, which we call Dhamma education. All of us now in this group, I believe that we know that in Buddha Sasana, in the Dhamma way of education, we have Pariyatti, Patipatti, and Pativeda. With all theory, with all knowledge are Pariyatti. With many kinds of practice are Patipatti. And with all the results, these are Pativeda. But the right Pariyatti give out the right Patipatti. The right theory point to lead to the right practice. And for sure, the right practice gives to the right quality, which is we should try to know or try to experience ourselves. As I mentioned before, I have been living with cancer for 14 years already now. When I first in that situation, it was a very high quality pain in my body, which is create a lot of stress, I guess. It should create a lot of stress. But I was thinking of when I was young, a little boy, I got cold and I got headache. My mother came to me and gave me one thing in her hand. when she came, she asked me, "What do you guess? Can you guess what is in my hand? What is in my hand?" I tried to guess. Maybe medicine. She said no. Maybe candy. She said no. It might be some herbal medicine. He said no. When I tried to think about what was in my mother's hand, it took about 3 minutes. I keep trying, and then she said that I got your mind in my hand. So when your mind in my hand, you are not pain anymore. I said, oh yes. So that remind me of that time. So when I first faced with the suffering of cancer, I just try to remind myself into that period of time. And again, when I was scared of something when I was young, I ran to my mother, and she said, she hugged me and said that take a break. And when I did that, just a few minutes, it's gone. Everything went very well and fast. So in this not quite a presentation, but I just would like to share this experience with all of you here to try breathe in, take the longest breath whenever you realize, whenever you feel stressed, whenever you feel tired, whenever you feel fear of something, just take a breath. Because the breathing is the body, is a part of the body, which the key to show the relationship between the body and the mind. If everyone thinking of when we go to the waterfall or wherever, which is a beautiful place, we feel happy. And then when we feel happy, our body automatically take long breath. And in the opposite way, if we feel angry, the body also automatically take short breath. This is the key to see the relationship between body and mind. So we can start from body. If we would like the mind to be happy, why not? We can take long breath. Whenever we take long breath, the central nervous system will notice that, oh, this is happy. This is the state of happiness. So it produces the biochemical of happiness to heal all the disease. So at that time, 14 years ago, cancer is the most dangerous disease. But in a few years, not long, as the World Health Organization concerned, the most dangerous disease which will harm humankind won't be cancer anymore. It will be spread. It will be spread. And even nowadays, every 40 seconds, we have people die because of that. So just would like to invite everyone to take long breath whenever you realize of any not quite good feeling or any not quite good situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Most Honorable Sotira, for your explanation and encouragement to have a deep breath every time we meet or we come across untoward situation. So you take a step back or sit back and take a long breath. It helps you and it can re-energize your system. So it's very scientific. Thank you so much, Bosco. And he did it himself. I'm happy that somehow our panel have finished in time, and we have quite a good time for Q&A. Before going to the floor, like to express my deep thanks to all the distinguished panelists who have done their great job and did a wonderful presentation today on this panel. And especially very appreciated most venerable Dr. Patriarch, despite his age, he's now 87 into 88, but he's still active in academic activities, academic fields. I'd like to participate in academic seminars, conferences. He's prolific writer, you know. During my studentship, I learned a lot from his writing. So he presented me today 3 books of his, and some other books which he has not brought, but I bought it when I was a student, and now 3 more books. So he's still very much engaged and active with us. Thank you so much, most of all. We all wish you, and by praying to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha for your good health and longer life. Yeah. And each and every panelist, I would like to, on behalf of the audience and on behalf of the organizing committee, express our thanks to you all for having done such a wonderful presentation and for your participation here as well. Before I would like to hand over to my professor. You would like to say something? Yeah. So my professor as co-chair, but his health is not well. He's not good. He got cough and it's difficult to speak. So no, never mind, Professor. Yeah, please take care of your good stuff, good health, and if we go one by one, it takes time a little bit. I have also, after each and every presentation, spoke only a few words, so I'll not summarize again, and we'll go to the floor for any comments and questions. But please identify yourself, make it short, straight to the point. Thank you. And please give a big applause.
Good afternoon, and I would like highly to respect His Eminence Bodgaya to the Chairman here, and most venerable Dr. Sovarnarattana, and also most venerable monks, venerable here, His Excellency, all guest speakers, and ladies and gentlemen. And my name is Venerable Sihanoukraja, and once again I would like to extend gratitude and thank most venerable Dr. Sovarnarattana providing me a golden chance to be a little bit humble. And I have a small question directly to Dr. M.H. Banda. Your presentation is very interesting and helpful to recognize about the mental health, physical health based on Buddhist principle. As we already got it that today, even the world and also Cambodia context, always people, many people always faced with mental crisis. Example like in Phnom Penh hospital, many people they always when go to the hospital to consult with the mental solution. So my specific question, how to attract the people to recognize and follow the Buddhist principle to apply and deal with the mental health in daily life spiritually. Thank you in advance.
Thank you, Reverend, for asking question. Actually, within 5 years, I am doing these researches regarding text communication and wisdom. According to my knowledge, Dhammacakkavalattana Sutra, Dhammapada, and all the books are master books to develop our life. In those books, we have instructions to develop our mind and our ideas, to develop our thinking thought. So I think, first of all, we have to manage our mind. Without controlling, without managing our mind, we can't do anything. And also, everywhere we should have a limit for everything. Without the limit, it is difficult to manage life. When we are doing some work, earning money, if not doing work, doing a job, or if not we are finding our pleasure for physical pleasure, mental pleasure, everywhere we should have a limit. So, the Buddha says us, the main thing is maintain the good mind, controlling the mind. So, there are two facts developed under the development, physical development and spiritual development. In this situation, it is very important. Spiritual development. It says the pure of the mind. Actually, the main thing is prevention is better than cure. So, first of all, we have to think about our mind and we have to control our mind and we have to work according to our ideas of our pure heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. So, just one word.
First of all, I would like to pay my sincere respect to Most Venerable like Patriarch, Chair and Co-Chair, Most Venerable Monk, distinguished guests, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. So my question goes to Madame Sushma. I may spell the name in a wrong way. You talk about self and non-self identity in Buddhism, right? And normally in Buddhism we do not talk about self, we talk about non-self. As you have raised already about the three characteristics of Buddhism, anicca, dukkha, anatta, right? Impermanent, suffering, and non-self. But when we talk about self, so we normally talk about self in Buddhism because self is out of control. Yeah, it's out of control. It's not in our control at all because it always falls into the birth, old age, sickness, and death. Right. So what I want you to elaborate more about self and non-self identity in Buddhism. And another question go to mind and body interdependent talk by Professor Andy, I think. To this point, I would like to share a little bit about my experience to practice in Buddhism. Usually I practice meditation during the night time because it's really beneficial, as most friends will talk about this. Because when our mind have a lot of things to do. We usually say that we are in the state of tension, stressed out situation, and make us unhappiness. And our body also in a process in not in a normal way. It causes a lot of headache or any other disease. So when we do a meditation to breathe in and breathe out, then we feel a lot of happiness because our brain full of oxygen. When we lack of oxygen, we may feel very bad and we can't think anything at all or concentrate anything at all. So it's better to breathe in and breathe out to fulfill our brain with oxygen, and then we will be fresh and build good memory. For those who have poor in memory, it's better to practice meditation. And so the question with body and mind. So to keep our mind healthy, we also focus on our body, right? If our body is not good, our mind may affect as well. Like Buddha, take Buddha as an example. Buddha practiced self-mortification in 6 years. So he tormented his physical body without eating by reducing food until stop, right? Then the Buddha found that it's not a good way to do this. He came back and start eating again. Then he found enlightenment. So body and mind really interdependent with each other. So if you want to be healthy mind, so don't forget to be healthy body. Need to drink a lot of water, as Professor in the slide, and do a lot of exercise, right, to keep healthy body and healthy mind. So my question, I see your slide, one slide about there is no happiness, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. So it makes me feel confused with that quote, because a lot of doctor skill in Buddhism.
Just may have to be short, save time for others.
Thank you.
I think that we got a point then. So yes, Professor Trivedi, I used to kind of, I was kidding her that you should be Chaturvedi, not
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, on the onset of my paper, I had clarified this, that this is not a philosophical discussion of self or no self. It is kind of implying Buddhist wisdom and Buddhist knowledge to the everyday problem of the society, modern society, so that a larger people, larger population gets benefited. Other than the practice in Buddhist, larger population of the world can get benefited by the Buddhist principles. The second courses as well. Thank you.
Yes, then Professor Panda, any response?
Actually, happiness, happy or unhappy, both created by us. So we have to take the decision. What are we going to do? If we need happiness, we have to follow the theories and rules and facts under the happiness. If our mind is not good, sometimes all the results may be bad. unhappy. So, as I explained earlier, I am telling now, the main thing is our mind. We have to clean, we have to cure, we have to understand our mind, and we have to work under the pure, very clean mind. If the mind is okay, our work out. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Short, straight to the point answer. So very good. Saving time. So please, yeah, Professor, please. Please, you, please.
My humble question is directed to the most venerable N.K.P.G who has conquered cancer some 40 years ago. Sir, there are three pedagogical approaches in Buddhism: Pariyatti, Patipatti, Pativedo. I would like to know, does Pativedo lead to Vipassana and conquering cancer? Yes.
Thank you for your question. In my own experience, I found that when we know the right knowledge, we got the right knowledge, and we turn to the right practice, the quality that we have gained from the right practice is the Pativeda. The Pativeda turn to the qualities and virtue at the end. So the virtue, when we keep practicing on the right way, more and more and more, the quality will transform our body and mind into the high quality, which we can say the virtue, which also the same result from Vipassana. So this is my point of view of the answer. I hope it will help. Thank you.
Thank you, most honorable. Yes, yeah. I better give the at the back first, most honorable. I saw you were questioning yesterday, but now let him first. Then. Hello.
Chia bất học số của tại đầu trời lực chân chia thời cùng cùng sau on nghe robot yang computing I am Lagartha graduate of Buddhist University. One question to Anna. Just my question: how the Buddhism place can be about to have the nose hole, how to beat the rope, outland and uphew by Axiomatic Cambodia as to resolve for our people in Cambodia.
You got the question? Look at another obstacle your line. I don't understand the questioning, but could you say Kumar, then I can put into English.
Hello. Can I chân trong cái sông su sạt mấy chiều sạt máy na chân ta có Phật Sasna ta tu niti yang na nơi quê đại bên chi chôn Campuchia tập mũ trời bàn ca rùm lô bồng biên đầy lý hay nâng ca thua ba đòi nhạc em này trongประเทศ Campuchia đòi được không tin hút cứประเทศบ้านกะปอนtừ nâng Phật Sasna nâng sông Phép Na sông O Phật Cột.
The question is a little bit political, but I ask it this way: when people believe they
and to control the mind, this is your exact word, and I am just wondering, how do you think about the mind and control the mind? Because the mind is the fastest thing on earth. Faster than the missile, faster than anything. My body is here, yet my mind is in the United States. How do you control that mind, and how you think about the mind? In Buddhism, now please correct me if I were wrong. The Buddha said that there are two identities. Excuse me. The bodies and the mind are two segregations, two different identities. How do you control the mind, and how do you think about the mind? And in addition, the mind needs the body needs the mind to keep it both healthy. Yet, in Buddhism, referring to the mind are two identities. The mind and the bodies are two identities. Could you elucidate on those three questions? Does that make any sense?
Yes, I want to tell an example from again Cambodia. Mano Pupangama Dhamma Mano Sita Manomaya. Manasa che pasannena bhaktiva karotiva. Manasa te padutena bhaktiva karotiva. So I think the good answer is that Dhammapada. But actually this is correct. Physical body is here, the mind is going everywhere, here and there, again coming back. In that hole, we are here, but our mind, sometimes my mind also went out and to my country, and again came back to this table. And I can explain that. So the main thing is discipline is the maintain, the tool of maintain good mind. Discipline, self-discipline is the tool to maintain our mind. We should have self-discipline. Without self-discipline, we can't do anything.
Please, Verbal, sit down, please.
I'm still not clear how the mind feels. Discipline things.
Just another question. I would like to just ask the Professor Lochan to elaborate. When you have seen the heirs in Buddhist education in Southeast Asia, any recommendation from you that we should take into implementation? Thank you.
Thanks for your question. You see, when we talk about element, in the sense of lacking things, drawbacks, and in Buddhist education system, the survival of Buddhist morality, because the core of Buddhist education in the monastic setup, has to be matched with the technological advancement of the modern science. That is most important challenge which we have to take up by going through the technological advancement. Number two, at the same time we should not lose the contact what is happening around, because when you are into Buddhist education system, you are much more required to create an army of Buddhist monks and nuns to spread the messages what have been going on for centuries. But if you do not know what are the other thinking in the same line, you see, when we talk about Buddhist education, we talk about there are lots of foreigners, Westerners learning. Buddhism is increasing in Europe, America, North America. At the same time, we forget how many percent of Buddhist population is gone in Asia. 40% gone in South Korea. Patambong has a crisis of lending private jets with missionary motives of progress, which is no more progress. So these educational drawbacks have to be made up by looking into our capability to build up by internal strength of Buddhism, by old and new lessons, plus importance of the language. I think Pali, which we call Palay, is very important for the core of it. You can find it much challenging, much easier to face the challenges of the onslaught of the other groups. So this is my humble suggestion of 3, which I said mentioned about that, which can make us strong to survive. We are struggling to survive in Asia. We are really struggling in population loss. That is very important for us for Buddhist education to save and maintain our prosperity and population together.